For years, Candace Owens has presented herself as a fearless truth teller, someone willing to challenge powerful institutions, question narratives, and say what others are afraid to say. To millions of viewers, she is a voice of clarity in a media landscape they believe is dishonest and corrupt. But behind that public persona is a story most of her audience has never heard. Before the viral clips, before the massive following, before the political influence, there was a very different Candace Owens. A series of controversies, reversals, and conflicts that raise an uncomfortable question. Is Candace Owens exposing the truth? Or is she building narratives that manipulate the people who trust her the most? In this series, we're going to take a closer look by examining the timeline of her own words, her past actions, and the people she's left behind along the way. Because the story of Candace Owens didn't begin with the platform she has today. And if you want to understand the claims she's making now about political organizations, former allies, and people inside the conservative movement, the first thing you have to understand is how she got here. This is part 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And also welcome to anyone new as well. The channel has gained some new subscribers recently, so welcome everyone, and I hope everyone is doing well. Okay, so today I am starting a new series that will probably be mini episodes. We are going to systematically be breaking down the situation around Candace Owens and her insane, vile, and utterly apprehensible behavior towards TPUSA and Erica Kirk. Not just her, though. Many others who are running with the loose insinuations and sometimes outright accusations, which are really just straight up lies coming from Candace Owens. They know that it's lies. They're running with it. They make up complete, utter nonsense. We're going to be going over that. It's part of a broader, larger problem that has been going on for quite some time now that is only seeming to get worse and worse as days go by. Now, what we're going to do is with this series is we're going to first start with Candace herself, though before we move forward into everything that's going on surrounding Turning Point and Erica Kirk. I want to try and do my best to show you the type of person that she truly is and why she shouldn't be held up as a trustworthy source for anything. In fact, she is a vile bully that nobody should be watching at all unless you're really into that sort of thing, in which case that's gross, terrible, disgusting. I'm also going to explain how she's done this to many other people before and how she really is just a bully. That's what she is. She's a high school mindset type bully. The girls that were mean in high school that bullied you for no reason and made up lies about you and came up with all kinds of reasons to make your life a living hell for no reason. And that is what Candace Owens is. She never really graduated out of that. She got a lot of attention acting this way since the very beginning, which we're going to go over. And so she has continued on and it's only gotten worse and worse. So let's do this. Okay, so I actually have quite a bit of sensitivity to what Candace Owens has been doing to people because I was actually part of an online community where it turned out creators, YouTube creators that had live stream communities were using their platform to single out what was essentially viewers of their content and would weaponize their other viewers against that person, resulting in targeting, gang stalking, bullying, spreading outright lies, making things up. It's some of the most vile and traumatic situation that I've ever been in my life. It ended up affecting hundreds of people, if not more. I found myself in the crosshairs, but I didn't get it nearly as bad as others did. Once I realized what was going on, I tried to track down as many people as I could who had been attacked in the same way, because I realized there was a pattern. And so I tried to find other people, which I did, and I collected their stories. And some were really, really horrific, and their daily lives were actually affected, their real lives. Some people had to get mental health help. Some people had to shut down their entire YouTube accounts that they had had for a really long time because of the stalking, so that they could make a new one and no one would know who they were. There were just so many horrific stories, but it made me start researching this specific topic more, and I realized that this stuff was occurring all over in different live streaming communities throughout YouTube and Discord and blah, blah, blah. So what Candace Owens is doing reminds me a lot of that situation, just on a much larger scale and with different people being attacked. So she's attacking people that are in the public arena mostly, whereas in the situation that I was in, that many others are in, that's going on, it's actually a really big problem, were small creators who were singling out people that were in their community that watched them. So it's slightly different, but it's almost the same tactics that she does, was the same stuff that I saw them doing. So it's really similar. It reminds me of that situation. So it sort of has a soft spot in my heart, what she's doing, because I've seen the impact that this can have on people's lives. And I just find bullying disgusting. I've always been the type of person who stands up for bullies. I'm don't mind what people do to me normally, but if you mess with my friends, then there's a real problem, and that's how I've sort of always been. I don't like bullying. I don't like making fun of people or outright lying about them, which is unbiblical. I'm also a Christian, so I don't also agree with what she's doing because of that. Okay, so let's move on. Now, let me tell you my story with Candace Owens. I figured that would be the best place to start. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, just hit the like, please. If you don't do this, I will be abducted by aliens. Thanks. I came across Candace in 2017 when she started her YouTube channel called Red Pill Black. And I believe I found her as she was doing her Myth of the Coon series. Let's take a look at that.
Hi everybody, my name is Candace Owens and you are watching my vlog series, The Myth of the Coon. So foremost, why the word coon? That is socially unacceptable. Why would someone who is African American say the word coon? The first answer is because I can. The second answer is because it's important that I do. To me, obviously, I believe that the word coon is a myth in the African American community, which actually systematically, words like Uncle Tom and Coon, these words systematically oppress Black people, which is quite ironic when said against the fact that the people that champion these phrases tend to think that they are the core of the Black evolvement and the Black movement. To give you guys a current event, a recent example of this in the press is the Colin Kaepernick never-ending saga. He did not get re-signed for the NFL. Michael Vick came out not swinging, but just essentially, you're not one of us, you're one of them. We have to stop doing this because we need to evolve. We have to understand that showing up everywhere angry or showing up everywhere disappointed is not going to get us anywhere in the world or in society that we would like to be. There are a lot of things that I believe in personally that would make me either a coon or an Uncle Tom. The first of them being that I don't support the Black Lives Matter movement whatsoever, because the Black Lives Matter movement does not support me. I think that a better title for that movement would be Black Deaths Matter. They seem to protest, and they seem to rage, and they seem to ruin, and they seem to support violence when a Black person dies. What about when a Black person lives? There are tons of Black people that are trying to better themselves in their community. There are tons of Black people that are disadvantaged by the homes that they are born into and just not having money. The Harvey Weinstein, Eminem, plus a P. Diddy solution to NFL protesting. My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my vlog series, The Myth of the Coon. Man, life comes at you fast, Hollywood. It's like 1 minute you're up there singing and tap dancing, mocking everyone from your moral high ground, and the next minute, bam! The world discovers that you've been covering up for a serial rapist. America voted for a misogynist, said every actor and actress. White supremacy and the KKK. Really? That's what you guys want me to be concerned with this week? Do I look like an idiot? My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my vlog series, The Myth of the Coon. Oh my God, Charlottesville! White supremacy is alive and well! Run! Stop. If you are a Black person and you express some irrational fears this week over the rise of the Klansmen and neo-Nazis, let me invite you over for a cup of hot steaming facts. Fact number 1. Approximately 93% of Black homicide victims are killed by other Black people. In 2014, 6,095 Black people were killed, and virtually all of them were killed by other Black people. Black Lives Matter protesters may want to consider extending their slogan to "Don't shoot," because we've already got it covered. And you're not special, white people. Seriously, in 2012, 84% of white homicides were committed by other white people. Go figure. It's like we're all racist towards our own selves. Nobody wants us dead more than we want ourselves dead. I mean, there are 6,000 Klansmen left in our nation. You want me to actually process that as a legitimate fear every day when I wake up? It's Donald Trump's fault that they're feeling energized. It's Obama's fault that Black Lives Matter is violent. Both of you children, to your room. It's obviously the media's fault. I mean, the media is creating this entire narrative, and it is crazy. And what are you supposed to be, little Jimmy? Just kidding, Halloween's been canceled. My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my vlog series, The Myth of the Coon. Trick or treat! You've probably heard by now that over at Boyden Elementary School in Massachusetts, they have decided to cancel Halloween. Apparently, it's not inclusive enough for all of the kids. That's not a trick, and it certainly isn't a treat. It's the real-life brain damage that liberalism causes. It's like just when we think we've gotten to the bottom of leftist crazy, they go ahead and unlock a whole other basement. And this time, the target is kindergarten. Kindergarten, where the toughest part should be learning to spell the word kindergarten. Merry Christmas! You know, you really should say Happy Holidays. Happy 4th of July! That's not when Black people got their independence. I'm Darth Vader for Halloween. Is she wearing blackface? Is that supposed to be blackface? Star Wars is racist.
Okay, so as you guys can see, that was The Myth of the Coon, her first, well, I don't know if it was her first series, but it was one of her very first things that she did on her YouTube channel that I saw anyway. That was a big talking point back then. There was a lot of talk about calling the right racist, and it was getting pretty out of control, and it was all a bunch of lies and stuff. And so she played off of that, what she knew was going on. That was popular rhetoric back then, which then got her noticed by Turning Point and other people on the right wing. Now, I didn't know at the time anything about her past before that. I just thought she was somebody who started a YouTube channel, and that was all that there was. I didn't know she had several issues in the past, which most people know of those things. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but let's go, at least not right this minute, but let's do an overview. Okay, so there were several sort of scandals, I guess you could say, that involved Candace Owens before her conservative, involving Candace Owens before she became a conservative. That would be pre 2017 controversies that centered on incidences where she was the victim or on projects that drew backlash. So she had a high school racist harassment incident where she allegedly received racist death threats, and that caused her to sue the school with her father. And it involved like the NAACP, and figures like Dr. Phil, and Owens and her family sued the Board of Education there for failing to protect her, resulting in $37,000 in settlement. And it was sort of a big deal, I think, for like the town. I'm not really for sure too much about that story or whatever, and it was really, she would have been really young. I think she was 17 or 18 at the time. I don't find that interesting, other than it is sort of unusual, I guess. The second thing that was going on is that she started this company called Degree 180 that involved blogging that criticized the Republican Tea Party. It was anti-Donald Trump, and there were also just a lot of really odd writings. Like, she was trying to develop a writing style and get noticed that way. And that company that she had also launched another company called socialautopsy.com via Kickstarter, and it was intended to be an anti-cyberbullying tool to create a public database of online harassers by collecting screenshots of offensive posts tied to individuals' names. It faced immediate widespread criticism from across the political spectrum. So progressives and conservatives alike were very upset with this, and for privacy concern reasons, risk of doxing, public shaming, and the potential misuse for retaliation. And it was just on the heels of the Gamergate. So Gamergate happened, which was this huge incident of where a big online harassment campaign went on against certain people in the gaming community that sort of blew up and went out of control. And that's another incident of this online creator bullying incident that was really big and really widespread and really affected a lot of people. Now, this Gamergate thing involved progressives and conservatives, like conservative men, I think, or right-leaning men, maybe not conservative, but just more right-leaning, and progressive-leaning women, I believe. Now, I would have to refresh my history of Gamergate, but Gamergate was widespread. So what I'm trying to say is it involved both sides getting attacked or weaponizing for the attack. So there was multiple stuff going on. This whole social autopsy thing of collecting people's data and their public posts and stuff and putting it on a database that could be searchable and linked to people really freaked out both sides. And so Candace Owens started getting criticism from both sides of the aisle. Well, then she like wouldn't admit to what the thing was, and there were people that were saying they had their information on there and they wanted it removed, and the whole thing caused Candace Owens to get really defensive, and she says the incident made her shift to conservatism. But I don't know if that necessarily was where the shift came from, because she was being attacked by both sides, so that claim didn't really ever make sense once I found out about it. Now, then shortly after that, she started getting noticed by right-wing people, and then she was taken into Turning Point USA. And I have an infographic. Okay, so this woman who has a YouTube channel, I believe, Tamara Neely, which I will find and link below. And I will also link her X account. But she put together this timeline of Candace Owens from her childhood and high school years to her career today. When you see everything chronologically, it helps explain how we got to her coverage of Erica Kirk and other people she's attacked in recent years. So here, let's look at this just to give us an over picture of everything, because I always forget dates or things that are going on. Okay, so, and I actually don't know if she was raised in a broken home. That could be a lie that she made up, because people are finding out that her parents didn't get divorced till she was in her 20s or something like that, or 31 or something. So it's a little confusing. And they also grew up in Connecticut in a white, wealthy neighborhood. So I'm still a little confused on that. Met Lindsay Dalo. I don't know who that is. Frequent conflict with her mother, kicked out at age 14. Allegedly, no female role models, 5 uncles incarcerated, wanted what Lindsay had. Vanity Fair article noted she felt she was dealt the wrong hand. So I don't know what all that means, but we will find out. Okay. 2005, number 1 high school racial incident. 2007, number 2 high school racial incident, arrest for harassment. A record sealed because she was underage. 2008, high school paid $37,000 in settlement of lawsuit, later claimed the incident contributed to her eating disorder. 2009 to 2014, attended the University of Rhode Island due to university costs and Adderall addiction. 2015, launched Degree 180, a left-leaning blog, featured celebrities, gossip, sex topics, and anti-Trump content. 2016, launched a Kickstarter campaign for social autopsy focused on exposing cyberbullying. Platform resulted in doxing individuals. The left canceled her over this. 2017, evicted from her luxury $3,500 apartment after not paying rent for 6 months. Sued BLT, lost lawsuit, ordered to pay $21,300 in back rent plus legal expenses. Became a Republican overnight, started Red Pill Black on YouTube. 2 months later, TPUSA hired her. Okay, so that gives us that timeline that I was trying to break down earlier. Okay, 2018, Kanye endorsed Candace via Twitter, launched Blexit Foundation. Kanye West distanced himself after CO falsely claimed that he designed the merch. Charlie Kirk started dating Erica Kirk, apologized to Kanye West, and they became friends again. Made pro-Hitler remarks. Okay, so this is pretty crazy. So she didn't work at Turning Point USA that long before Charlie started dating Erica Kirk, really, if you think about it. 2019, resigned from TPUSA, hired by PragerU, met and was engaged to George Farmer 18 days after they were introduced. They married less than a year later. 2020, released book Blackout, spoke at CPAC. 2021, joined the Daily Wire, tarnished the reputation of the rising right-wing figure Kimberly Klacik, hosted Instagram lives attacking celebrities and fueling feuds, began selling white-labeled Chinese cell phones branded as Freedom Phones. Oh, I wonder whatever happened with that. I do remember that, those Freedom Phones. 2022, founded Glorify, an anti-woke banking startup. Company shut down within months. 2023, Blexit merged with Turning Point USA. 2024, anti-Semitic rhetoric escalated, fired from the Daily Wire. Visa denied in Australia. Owed $100,000 in refunds after a cancellation tour. Blamed the promoter. 2025, published a 7-hour documentary, claimed Bridget Macron was secretly a man. The Macron family filed a defamation lawsuit, which is ongoing. 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated at UVU. Massive evangelical revival. Candace Owens releases new information insinuating Charlie Kirk was actually thinking about becoming Catholic, and Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk. Candace Owens launches Charlie Kirk assassination investigation. Israeli Prime Minister provides Charlie Kirk letters. CNN presents Tyler Robinson's evidence to Candace Owens debunking her claims. Okay, so I think that's talking about an interview that she did with CNN, which is actually pretty fascinating. She didn't even know basic information on the case against Tyler Robinson that's put in the court documents. It's like she's never looked at them or anything. 2026, Candace Owens received a second cease and desist from Turning Point USA. Candace Owens is now investigating Charlie Kirk's widow based on a feeling that she had something to do with the assassination. She really doesn't believe that. She's just, this is what she does. The Macron lawsuit is still in process. Okay, so that's good. We might come back to this every so often, and I will definitely leave this woman's link to her X account and her YouTube channel in the description. So I want to switch up to an article that I found, which is pretty revealing. I think from this series of articles that we're going to go over, it's a series that the writer's writing. I think you can get a really good feel for how Candace Owens is. But before we go into that, I want to explain why I stopped watching Candace Owens. I enjoyed Candace Owens' work. I thought she was brilliant, like she is actually brilliant, and I enjoyed watching her. And then I slowly started like watching her less and less, but she was on like a rotation. So you know how you'll have people you watch every day, then you'll have people you watch every other day, and then you'll have people you watch every so often, but they're still in your rotation. She had moved out of my rotation of every day or however often she posted. So I was not watching her as frequently as in the beginning once she started with Daily Wire, I think. I think because her first show was actually behind a paywall, and that might have been what did that. But I was still watching her and following her and keeping up with her, and I still liked her. But then she did this. So let me pull this up and explain it. Okay, so we're going to watch this video by Milk Bar TV because I couldn't find the actual episode when I went looking for it a couple months ago, because I think it was while she was still at the Daily Wire, and I don't think that they have those up anymore. A couple years ago, I believe it was, she started defending Andrew Tate after he was arrested, and apparently they're extremely good friends, and him and her husband go way, way back, and I found that really odd. And a lot of people, it wasn't just Candace Owens, a lot of people were defending him and acting like the stuff that he was being charged with wasn't real or that it was extremely old. The problem with that is it didn't work on me because I had just spent like a year or maybe even more, like a year and a couple months inside the manosphere, and I knew exactly what was up with Andrew Tate, and I knew that the allegations weren't 10 years ago because he was talking about everything he was doing all the way up until he was arrested. And he was literally arrested for doing that. They caught red-handed. They raided his compound. And basically what he was doing, which he described in graphic detail to other men in the manosphere on their podcast, explaining to them how to do this women. And he also had and still does, this thing called Tate University that he changed to the Matrix or something, the name of it. But it is literally a platform that charges boys, young boys and young men, really high charges to join this community where they can learn how to do this all from Andrew Tate, how to use the lover boy method to make women think that they're dating you with the purpose of getting married or having a long-term relationship. And then you basically make them do work on camera and stuff, force them, beat them if you have to. And that's what he was doing up until the time he was arrested, and he probably still is for all we know. And it didn't take very much research to be able to figure that out. So I found it very odd when people like Tucker Carlson and then Candace Owens went to Romania to interview him, and then they let him sit there and lie about all his charges, even though they have research teams. They're able to put together research teams to fact check all of that, and yet they just did softball interviews with him. And so I found that odd. But then Candace Owens went a step further and actually started attacking his victims, or one of his victims who was underage. And I found it so disgusting. Not only did it put her life in danger because you're getting all of Andrew Tate's fans mad at this woman, young girl who lives in Florida, and doxing her while protecting the names of the other men that SA her, and some of them were even in jail for it. But she blames it all on the victim and says she's got a history of this, even though she was quite young when these men took advantage of her. So let's watch this video and see what you guys think.
I'm underage and Fisher is still with her. He knows she's underage right here. I'm surprised Candace is actually reading this.
Yeah, me too. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
Well, today I'm going to offer you the most thorough accounting of the exact charges that face the Tate brothers and my belief of why they are going to beat these charges.
Hi, I'm Nathan from Milk Bar TV. Candace Owens recently did an interview with Andrew Tate, self-professed pimp, who's facing criminal charges of rape and human trafficking. It appears that the blowback from this interview was so severe that she felt she needed to justify why she did it. Pretty much she finds herself defending 5 child predators in an attempt to take down one of Andrew Tate's victims. It's quite shocking and really quite unbelievable. But let's take a look.
So who is she? First, I'll tell you who she is, according to the Tate brothers, who is suing her in Palm Beach County, Florida.
According to the Tate brothers, we're going to tell you who a human trafficking victim is by the 2 guys who have been charged with human trafficking this victim in Romania. So they're going to tell you who this victim is.
According to them, again, if you want to take their word for it.
We don't want to take their word for it. As we've already seen in previous videos that you've made, Milk Bar, Tate is a compulsive liar.
He is a predator who has a long history of baiting men into relationships for the specific purpose of destroying their lives. She has a chain of victims going back several years to when she was a minor.
Oh, she said it. She was a minor. These are not guys who were 20 years old or 22 years old. These men are all into their mid-30s and above. Keith Fox was 57. Emma was 15. Dustin Milner was 35 years old. Emma was 17. Tyler Hensel was 35 years old. Emma was 17. Marlon Fisher was 34 years old. Emma was just 1 month out of her 16th birthday. She was 17. Joel Friedman was 39 years old. Emma was 17. So what we have here is a group of child predators, guys who are preying on young girls, saying, oh, woe is me, I was set up by this minor. That's what we have here. This is essentially Jeffrey Epstein saying, oh, I was having these underage girls come in and give me massages, but I didn't know they were under the age of 18. Silly me. These are guys who were looking for young women. And Emma, she looks very young, as you can see. How can a grown man in his mid-30s or older look at this girl and say, oh yeah, clearly she's overage? The responsibility is the adults to make sure that she's overage. So let's talk about the law in Florida regarding statutory rape and what this actually means. In Florida, anyone over the age of 24 cannot have sex with someone under the age of 18 years old, even if the person under the age of 18 years old lied about their age. Ignorance is not a defense. Even if they lied about their age, it is the responsibility of the adult to figure out the true age of the minor. This is the law. If you don't like the law, feel free to go and try to change the law.
Before she ever met a Tate brother, he was a sex worker. She had her own Pornhub account, and she could be contacted via a sex hotline. Again, that is before she ever met a Tate brother.
All right, in the actual Florida lawsuit, the only thing they mention is social media accounts, and they mention an OnlyFans account. Now, Emma's OnlyFans account, she did topless pictures on there, and she eventually shut that down because she was not interested in OnlyFans. And what she's showing on the screen right now, 666 Fury, that is an image, a mock-up image that was taken directly from her Instagram account. There is no 666 Fury. That is just an image that she put together with the costume that she had. That doesn't exist. She was not a sex worker in this sense. So this is starting out really bad. She's gaslighting people into thinking that Emma was the sex worker, when in fact the worst that she actually did was do topless pictures on OnlyFans.
The first case involves a man who I am not going to name.
And she would have still been underage, I believe.
And the only reason I'm not going to name him is because at the time of the allegations against him, Emma was in fact a minor, and that of course is relevant. So we just want to be ethical here.
So she
Okay, so this is what I was watching. I wasn't watching Milk Bar TV, but I was watching this episode of Candace Owens, and I was sitting here going, what on earth are you so you're going to blast this woman who is a victim of 5 men as an underage and a victim of Andrew Tate, and you're going to blast her name, but you're going to bleep out the perpetrators' names. And I'm like, what? I was so confused watching this. It was unbelievable to me.
Wants to be ethical here, and she's protecting the man who has been convicted of a sex crime against 2 different minors because there was a minor involved. However, she has no problem saying what the minor's name is. So she has no problem saying Emma's name, but she's not mentioning the actual name of Keith Fox.
Throughout this episode, by the way, you're going to hear some beeps when I'm discussing this case. If I accidentally say his name, we intend to just beep it out.
Keith Fox was a 57-year-old man who was convicted and sentenced to 24 years in prison, actually abusing 2 girls under the age of 18. Emma was a 15-year-old girl. He was a 57-year-old married man who was abusing her. A private investigator captured images of Keith Fox actually abusing Emma through a window. So he was caught red-handed. And if you look this case up, you're going to know that there's absolutely no possible scenario in where she falsely accused this man of anything.
And not expose his name so people can look up the case because, as I said, she was underage at the time.
And they don't want you to know his name because if you look this case up, you're going to see that she clearly did not frame him.
There were 2 girls that were involved in that case, just to be clear, and one of the girls admitted.
So, do you get what he is saying? She is manipulating the audience. She's not saying his name because she doesn't want you to go look up the case. Because if you look up the case, it will dispel the narrative that she's spinning here, which is that Emma makes this up, that she's not only done this to Andrew Tate, quotation marks, but she's done it to these other men in her past. When she was underage, she made up false accusations about them and put some of them in prison. And so if you actually were able to look up the case, you would see that Candace Owens is lying. So she is a liar. She is a liar. That's what she does. She is a liar, and she's despicable, and she's defending PDF files in this video here.
Flat out to having an outright sexual relationship with him, including, of course. Now let's talk about Marlon Fisher. Who is he?
So let's talk about Marlon Fisher. He was a 34-year-old man, and he met Emma 1 month after her 16th birthday. And all of the chats that you're going to see here, these chats allegedly come from Marlon illegally accessing her phone and taking all of these chats off of her phone. So this is a child predator, 34 years old, dealing with a woman who's 17 years old, and ignorance is not a defense, remember. She can lie about her age, but in Florida, the responsibility falls on him. And he has a history here. And though the actual case was dismissed, there was another person who took him to court and filed a petition for stalking. So this isn't the first time he's had issues.
So this is a text message that Marlon Fisher is alleging that Emma Gabby sent to people regarding him. Now, to be clear, before I read this text message, I am about to read you a lot of text messages that apparently came from Emma Gabby and other people throughout this episode. As a general disclaimer, these text messages are a part of cases that are pending and have been submitted to the courts. They have signed affidavits swearing that these are true. I independently, of course, have no means to individually authenticate these messages and to say to you that these are definitely real and I'm holding the phone. So you're going to have to trust the people that are submitting them.
Pause. We have to trust child predators. That's what she's saying right here. We have to trust that a man who is 34 years old, having course with a girl who's 17 years old, which is statute, we have to trust this man has given an honest affidavit.
So going back to this text message, the first one reads from Emma Gabby, again, out to all of her friends. I need to open up and tell you all something because I owe it to you, the people I care about. You have each moved me so much in my life that I am able to do it. I have a problem. I am a pathological liar. My life started in Kazakhstan, where I grew up in a loveless orphanage. We were picked up facing away from the caretakers, so we never developed love. I never learned how to hug, smile, kiss, touch, or be close to anybody. I was adopted by incredible people named Mona and Bill, who saved me from a life of abuse. I had a beautiful childhood because of them. When I was 11 or 12, I began to dissociate and resent them. I felt unwanted and like I had no family, so I began to rebel, doing drugs and meeting lots of different people.
This is exactly the type of troubled and vulnerable woman that human traffickers will look for.
Would a go off through a metal detector? And to give context to that message, the context that was provided by Marlon Fisher, she was asking Marlon Fisher if wearing her would set off the courthouse metal detector when she needed to go through in order to meet with the district attorney who was prosecuting the person that I just told you about, which is why it's relevant.
Yeah, I don't even understand the point of this. What she's doing is she's shaming a child. She's shaming a troubled child for, kinks. And that has nothing to do with the fact that she was allegedly trafficked to Romania. None of this has anything to do with that, other than they're just trying to shame her.
Again, this is being told by Marlon Fisher, so I can only say allegedly these are her actual text messages.
Allegedly.
Now, Marlon Fisher began to suspect that she was lying about her age. Now, remember, is serving a prison sentence. His life has pretty much been destroyed here. But the pattern of behavior, again, this is coming from Marlon Fisher, that was used on him represents the same pattern of behavior that she used against her other victims.
Okay, so pause it right here, because Jail John, who is Keith Fox, he was caught on film and he was convicted. There is no scenario here where she misled him. Ignorance is not a defense. That's why he was convicted and why he was actually sent to prison, because in Florida, that doesn't matter. She lied about her age, so what? It was your responsibility. That's why they convicted him and actually sent him to prison. Additionally, if Fisher once finds that, if he starts questioning her age, that's where you sever the relationship. You don't continue a relationship with someone when you start to suspect that they might be a minor. You're gone. You bounce. The fact that he's hanging around is suspect.
That was induced into an illicit sexual relationship with a minor under false pretenses. According to Marlon Fisher, performed deviant sexual acts in the bedroom, such as urinating on her during.
Yeah, he's the victim. He's the victim here, the 57-year-old.
Okay, so, and what she's doing is she's trying to make it sound like the victim is the one that's instigating all this and causing all this to happen, but the victim has been groomed. That's what happens to these girls. There is another case out of Boston of a young woman named Sandra Birchmore who had been groomed. She went into the police academy, the youth, not the police academy, but the youth program or whatever as a 12-year-old. And then 2 or 3 or maybe even more police officers there groomed her and passed her around. And the stuff they found on her computer and the text messages between the men were very graphic and very abusive. Like she underwent a lot of abuse, but she thought it was normal. It had been normalized to her, and then eventually they killed her. And so it's a murder case. When she was older, this abuse went on until she was even up into being an adult. And it is a federal case, murder case that's going on right now. And basically the man who's accused of murdering her did so after she got pregnant. So the allegation is that he went to her apartment and strangled her and then made it look like that she hung herself on a doorknob. That was like eventually found out. He did get away with it for some time. But in these cases where these women are groomed, this is the kind of stuff that you are going to see. It is not that abnormal.
Married man who was urinating on a 15-year-old child is the victim, just for context.
Well, it ends with filing documents against Marlon Fisher. On September 16, 2019, she walked into Palm Beach County Courthouse and filed a temporary injunction for protection against domestic abuse against Marlon Fisher under what he claims are false pretenses.
So what we have here is the second situation where Emma has accused someone formally. The first one was Keith Fox, and I believe it was her mother that started that in motion, but he was convicted. He was convicted. He did it to another girl. He was caught on film. He was convicted. There's no question that was not false. Now we have the second person here who she did go to the police and file some sort of an accusation. Notice it was not kidnapping and it was not human trafficking as the Tates love to claim. So we have one that was actually convicted, so that's not false. And we have a second one which has nothing to do with human trafficking or kidnapping.
She filed a restraining order under oath in Florida State Court where she accused Marlon Fisher of severely abusing her. Marlon Fisher, distraught, did not know what to do. Now, just as a reminder, they've engaged in BDSM, according to him.
Right. This is all according to Tates and according to the man who was her, essentially.
She wants to engage in BDSM, and so now she is claiming that she has been abused. So you can imagine this obviously presents some suffering.
Pause. You've been with a minor, and now you found out that you're having a minor. You continue to have communication with the minor, and now the minor actually goes to the police and makes some accusations against you. Oh yeah, of course, you're going to suffer. You know that's statute. You know, I'm surprised Chris Henson didn't walk in and tell him to have a seat. Why don't you have a seat right over there?
The next case, and I want to be clear here, I have seen people online circulating saying that this woman caused a man to commit. I want to say that that is something that is an allegation that I would not stand by.
So Candace says she wouldn't stand by this, but then she continues to go into it. She obviously wants to plant that seed to make you think, well, maybe she was involved. So Dustin Milner was a 35-year-old depressed man who was having sex with a 17-year-old girl, which was Emma. He also has a criminal history. He got a felony for unauthorized possession of an identification card. So it looks like at one time he also had a fake ID. So 35 years old with a 17-year-old. Now, according to the Florida lawsuit, there's no actual evidence that says that she's involved. They're basing it on the brother believing, his thought is, that she may have been involved. And I can understand where he might be coming from, where he's trying to make sense of the suicide and he wants to put the blame somewhere. So obviously he's going to place it with her, but there's no actual evidence that she was involved.
So there is no evidence here that could back this up. She didn't tell him to kill himself.
Okay, so she just said it. There's no evidence to back this up. Candace said that herself. And it's also important to understand there was no accusation here. She did not accuse him of trafficking, of kidnapping, or any particular crime. He unfortunately committed suicide, and there's no evidence to actually back that up.
And so I just want to make it clear that in digging into this, I didn't feel comfortable suggesting that she made him commit suicide.
But you talked about it anyway.
Moving on to a young man named Tyler Hensel.
Okay, so Tyler Hensel, the young man who was 35 years old, and you can see that at the bottom of the screen there. She highlights something in yellow, but if you go down and look, you can see that Tyler was 35 years old and Emma was 17 years old. Now, Tyler alleges that he thought she was 26 years old, but again, ignorance is not a defense. The responsibility falls on him, 35-year-old with a 17-year-old.
Indicating to Hensel, like to Martin Fisher before him that she was into BDSM and insisted on calling him daddy in the bedroom. At one point, when the two of them were alone, Gabby even jumped on top of Tyler Hensel, initiating sexual contact. Hensel, who was not into this kind of degrading behavior, often rejected her demands for more aggressive conduct.
But he still had sex with her, and there's no way, looking at her picture, are you going to think that she is 26 years old back when she's 17 years old? That's not going to happen. And I hate the fact that she keeps shaming her for her. That's not a crime. If you want to talk about, the Tate brothers are both on the record for choking women until they pass out.
Now, again, this person, she never ended up filing anything against.
Okay, pause. So there were no accusations made against Tyler Hensel. So now we have two of the men where there were no accusations made. One of the men was actually convicted. So we have one man where accusations were made, and it was not about human trafficking or kidnapping. So we have one man where she's made an accusation against. And technically speaking, he was 34, she was 17. That is statute. So she would have been within her rights to actually make that complaint.
Then we have the defamation of Joel Friedman, that she defamed a man named Joel Friedman. And this is an actual text message. How do we know about this defamation against Joel Friedman?
All right, so Joel Friedman is a 39-year-old man. Again, Emma was 17 years old. And how did you learn about the defamation? Surprise, through Fisher, the child predator. And also, Friedman had a history of drug abuse. He's actually been brought up on charges for drug abuse. One of the charges was possession of cocaine.
Exchange between Marlon and Gabby. Gabby writes, "Can I message Joel to tell him that I have a boyfriend?" Marlon Fisher says, "As you clearly understand, nobody cares that you have a boyfriend, but if you'd like to tell him that he hates you, by all means." Emma says, "I'd like to not put our relationship at risk. I'll gladly tell him when I'm 18 and anybody else that happened with." So sweet you are. You're breaking up with me because I don't want to tell Joel that it's me. One, I don't know if he would tell other people that I'm underage.
I'm underage and Fisher is still with her. And she doesn't want to ruin the relationship with Fisher. He knows she's underage right here. How can you say she set you up? You know she's underage and you're continuing with this relationship. I'm surprised Candace is actually reading this.
Yeah, me too. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
Marlon Fisher ends up actually confronting Friedman. You imagine your girlfriend tells you that she was by some other man.
Pause. Your underage girlfriend tells you that she was raped by another man. Your underage girlfriend, when you were 34 years old, tells you that she was raped by another 39-year-old man. What is going on here? How is she saying this with a straight face?
Well, eventually Marlon Fisher confronts Friedman over the allegation. Friedman purports to be an innocent man, of course, denied those allegations. Friedman stated that they had a dating type relationship, but were never intimate and shared the passion of music together.
We're supposed to believe an underage girl is so charged that she's into all of this crazy stuff and want to put in and walk through court and get choked and all this BDSM. But with this one guy, there's no relation whatsoever. Yeah, I have a hard time believing that.
So that's really interesting. You see a person who has a pattern, these men that are coming out and making statements via an affidavit that about their relationship with her, about how she lied, about how she manipulated. But this pattern of speaking to one man about the last man and claiming that she's in a compromising situation is what these men are saying.
Pause. Yeah, we need to go back on this because Candace has talked about 5 men here. And let's kind of put this in context with the Tate saying that she's accused 7 men of kidnapping or human trafficking.
There's going to be another conversation as to whether women can go around and accuse 7, 8, 9, 10 people of kidnapping on repeat whenever they don't get the handbag they want.
So this all began with a girl accusing us of kidnapping her, a girl we have the CCTV to prove was never kidnapped. Isn't it interesting that she's accused 7 other men of kidnapping her in her life?
And so Keith Fox, he was convicted. There's no question. There was no false accusation there. Dustin Milner, there was no accusation. Tyler Hensel, there was no accusation. Marlon Fisher, there was an accusation, but to be fair, he would fall under statute. He was 34, she was 17. And Joel Friedman, there was no formal accusation. It was Marlon Fisher who claims Emma told him that, but that's not a formal accusation. So at best, we have 2 accusations, and one of them was not formal. So I don't know where this whole she accused 7 men came from. That simply does not exist.
Yeah, and there's 2 missing men. That's 5.
Yeah.
She says that she's in a compromising situation and the other person's here to rescue her. She's telling Marlon that Tyler Hensel, she's talking to this person. She's talking to Friedman and saying, oh, this other guy that I'm dealing with is me, or I'm in a compromising situation. This is her pattern of behavior before she ever meets a single Tate brother. Again,
yeah, pause. This is the pattern of behavior of a child. This is the pattern of behavior of a child who is abused by multiple men. And by men, I don't mean men who are 21 years old, men who are 39, 34, 35, 35, and 57 years old. And that's just the ones we know about. So this is the pattern of a minor who's abused repeatedly by adults.
And a pattern of behavior that's being put forth by the Tate brothers.
Yeah.
And the evidence is you have to trust these child predators.
Right. Trust the child predators to tell you the truth. Trust the men who have been formally charged with human trafficking to tell you the truth.
Okay, so I had a really big problem with that. With Candace Owens, I saw what she really was when I saw that episode. I saw that she was willing to compromise herself and lie for really bad people. And I saw that she was willing to lie about child victims for her friends and paint a whole narrative to her audience and weaponize her audience against a young woman who has no security. You know, she's not famous. And Andrew Tate has a lot of sycophants. So I found that behavior incredibly disgusting and I stopped watching her back then. Now, I want to go from here to the article that I was talking about. And this is going to be a series because this article is a series and we're going to jump all around. You know how I like to do videos. I connect dots in very strange ways, but this is a series. This is a series of articles. We're going to explore this article series together because it is extremely well done. And it really captures, I think, the best that I've seen so far, captures the spirit of Candace Owens. Now, this is from House Inhabit. She's a writer. She's created, I believe, a media network, I guess, a media publication brand. And so she has other writers that write for her, obviously, under this brand. But this is the owner, Jessica Reed Kraus. I hope I'm saying that right. This is one, Candace Owens Undone, Object of Scorn, an early echo of the bombastic self-promotion, snideness, and attachment to performed conclusions that would one day dazzle millions. Note, this series blends traditional reporting, cultural analysis, and first-hand reflection to offer coverage that is fair as it is real. It's personal, it's political, and it's only possible because of your support. And I will leave the link to this article so you can find her Substack that way in the description box. And all videos, the Milk Bar video will be in the description box as well as a whole series on the Andrew Tates and now Candace Owens and other people. And he's a really good researcher. The guy that was talking, though, was a different guy. Forget his name. He also does a lot of research into the Andrew Tates. And I think it's Gadget or something. I will find his YouTube channel as well and link it below. When the French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte filed a lawsuit against an American internet personality in Delaware court this July, I wasn't sure what I'd make of it. I did not expect the case to affect me emotionally. Then I sat down to read the filing. Across 219 pages, the suit detailed an orchestrated campaign of defamation in which the French First Lady was subjected to a barrage of verifiably false and devastating lies that spread uncontrollably and led to sustained harassment. The primary conspiracy alleged she was a biological male who had stolen a woman's identity in order to fraudulently live as a woman and fraudulently serve as the First Lady of France. Secondary conspiracies included that she was a blood relative of her husband, rendering their marriage not just same-sex, but incestuous, and that the French president himself was a Manchurian candidate installed by the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, right here, I'm going to stop. I never watched the Brigitte Macron series that Candace put out because, like I said, I stopped watching Candace a while ago, but I did hear about it and I sort of looked into it. And I remember one thing about it was that she had taken over her brother's identity or something like that. But then I looked into it and her brother's like very much alive and exists. So I just figured the whole thing was probably made up and dumb and didn't look into it much further. But just the fact that the woman has brought a lawsuit should show you that it is not true, because if it was true, they wouldn't file a lawsuit. The accusations were broadcast to millions beginning in March 2024. The suit alleged so that the respondent could promote her independent platform, gain notoriety, and make money. as a global humiliation was visited upon the Macrons. Efforts to correct the falsehoods only intensified the harassment. Rather than engage with President and Mrs. Macron's efforts to set the record straight, the suit claimed the respondent disregarded all credible evidence disproving her claim, mocked them, and used them as additional fodder for her frenzied fan base, and continued to platform known conspiracy theorists and proven defamers. When the Macrons demanded a retraction, the respondent produced an 8-part podcast series, further amplifying the conspiracy instead. It is not the pursuit of truth, the complainant states, but the pursuit of fame. And I'm going to stop right there and find a clip. Okay, so I found the clip and I want to reiterate the sentence that made me go find this clip. So, when the Macrons demanded a retraction, the respondent produced an 8-part series, further amplifying the conspiracy instead. Just so you know, and this woman's going to explain her whole story with Candace and what Candace did to her, but just so you know, let's listen to this clip because recently Candace Owens, in her series on Erica Kirk, she said in the clip that I'm about to show you that this was only going to be 3 parts, but because people on the internet started pushing back against all this, has nothing to do with Erica. Other people just did this, and they started posting her producers' Facebook pages or Instagram pages online saying maybe we should look into these people since Candace is looking into everybody in Turning Point and everybody in Erica's life. This is what Candace said.
Closer to being finished with this series. It was only supposed to be 3 episodes, but because they posted Savannah's baby, I was like, oh no, you're getting a whole extra week. You don't post infants on the internet. You just don't post infants on the internet. And then I added another episode because somebody called Skylar and left a message. So this is how I play. We can go a whole year. I can do a whole year. Brigitte got a season 2 because she sued me. Brigitte was supposed to just be an episode. And then she sent me a threat and she got a season. And then she sent me a lawsuit and she got a 2nd season. So, and you know, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, so if you listen to that, because people who are not Erica Kirk posted her producers, one of her producers' Instagram, which had a bunch of pictures on it, was just the front page of her Instagram on Twitter. And one of the pictures on the side was of her baby, I'm presuming, an infant. She is now putting that on Erica Kirk and is saying, I'm going to keep making this series about you where I'm lying and making all these insinuations because of what other people have done. And she's like, I can go all year. I did it to Macron. When they asked me to stop, I did it even harder at them. So she is just nasty like that. She's making horrible accusations about Erica and her mom, who's dying at the moment and is really, really sick. And she's just being really vile and disgusting and bullying. And now she's taking it out on Erica and saying, I'm going to do more of these episodes because of what other people on the internet who have nothing to do with Erica Kirk are doing. So I find that pretty disgusting. It is not in the pursuit of truth, the complainant states, but in the pursuit of fame. My pulse quickened as I read the documents. The experience was so familiar that it was almost disturbing. Thousands of miles away, under entirely different circumstances, the same forces that had taken over my life that spring appeared to be bearing down on the leaders of a foreign government. I recognized the pattern because I had already lived through a version of it. And like I said earlier in my opening, I also had lived through a similar situation that was on a much lower scale. Look, I'm going to be real honest with you guys. If I can't get people to subscribe or like, YouTube will literally send aliens to my house. Do you want me to be probed? I need you to like and to subscribe. Thank you. As someone who has endured the wrath of Candace Owens, I can attest to the damage she is capable of inflicting with the stories she tells on camera about those she cast as villains. For me, it arrived as a jolt of terror, followed by chaos and aftershocks of mental and spiritual distress that still reverberate 8 months later. Her objects of scorn change with the news and with political and cultural winds. but her method is consistent. Her pattern is predictable, ruthless, and calculated. It brings me no solace to know that I am alone. And one of the things we talk about a lot on my channel is propaganda and how people can weaponize narratives and use them against you. Governments, media, different ideologies and stuff. So one of the things I'm trying to teach people is how to recognize narrative spin and control. And one of the things that Candace Owens is extremely good at is manipulation with words. And so let me show you a video of somebody who explains this really well. Okay, so this is by the content creator that has the channel What Do You Meme? And I will leave this linked below as well. And the title of this video is The Dangerous Deception Behind Candace's Method.
Candace Owens might be one of the most persuasive voices online right now. What she's really doing, whether she knows it or not, is one of the most effective persuasion formulas on the internet. Her videos on Charlie Kirk's assassination have averaged millions of views, and Candace is incredibly good at one thing: making people feel certain without ever proving anything. So I sat through all 36 hours of her investigation so far, every clip, every theory, just to see what's really going on. And what I found were 5 tactics that make Candace Owens not just convincing, but dangerously persuasive. And once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. Now, obviously, a lot of people feel deceived and gaslit by institutions, and in many cases, rightly so. But that's not the only thing going on here. If you've ever watched one of our episodes, you'll notice it immediately. The odd footage, the timestamps, things that don't line up, the screenshots that don't make sense, and the random people who suddenly seem suspicious. But she doesn't just give you 1 or 2 of these. Every episode, she throws out more than you can count. Nearly 15 in this video alone, sometimes over 20. In fact, I say that this is virtually the entirety of her episodes. She gathers anything that could look suspicious, even if it could be random or unrelated.
On 9/4, Akash Patel as far as November and December. Then we have Frank Turek on October 7th. Well, Megyn Kelly.
And with so many anomalies being introduced every episode, at least a couple of them will strike you as strange, and given the sheer volume of her claims, your ability to think carefully about any of them gets drawn out by the sheer number of them. By the time
It's a flood the zone tactic that's used to manipulate people, where you flood the zone so that it's hard to discern the truth out of anything. And it also makes it really hard to debunk as well, because there's so many things that you would have to debunk that it's just so much overload, like nobody could possibly do it. Plus, she doesn't actually give you the full information that you would need to debunk something, because she actually doesn't provide any evidence. She provides things that are circumstantial or not evidence at all, but she makes it sound like it is.
Time you start to think critically about one date or rumor or insinuation, she's already moved on to the next. So eventually what happens is you stop paying attention to the quality of the evidence and you're overwhelmed by the quantity, leaving you to conclude that there's just simply too many strange things occurring for there not to be something more going on. This can be thought of as an anomaly overload. It's what happens when a flood of speculation starts to feel like evidence, and when the gaps in our knowledge become proof that something sinister is happening.
What's going on here? What are Egyptian military subcontractors doing in the middle of Provo, Utah on the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
And even though she hasn't proven anything yet, within 1 episode, you've already moved on from curious to convinced. And all she had to do was to keep asking questions.
The crime that you were not allowed to commit, just asking questions.
Okay, but her asking questions is exactly what's in question. If you listen closely to her podcast, often she is just asking questions, but in a way where people hear much more than just a question. Sometimes she makes the implications clear, as she did when implying that Donald Trump was involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination.
I think it is a circumstance where we just know that he was truly betrayed in one of the most egregious ways that I think I've ever seen. It has made me lose faith in politics. It has made me fully lose faith in Trump. And my heart aches for the fact that he gave so much of his life to Trump into politics, and we're like, nope, that is it. And he serves us or doesn't serve us, and we want to move on. And so here's a holiday. Bro, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? As soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely killed you. There's no question. They killed you.
But most of the time, she stays just short of an accusation. Her questions are often laced with heavy inflammatory suspicion, framed as innocent curiosity, while implying someone's guilt or their hidden motives.
So what was the blue plane doing sitting on the tarmac?
That's what makes her question so powerful, because it gives her plausible deniability. If her theory collapses, she was just asking questions. But if it turns out to be true, then of course she was right all along. And that has a powerful effect on her audience. It's the way that she frames the questions that makes her audience hear them as evidence for a conspiracy. So she doesn't need to directly accuse anyone, because she sets it up so that way her audience fills in the blanks for her. But Questions aren't evidence of anything sinister happening. When it comes to actual evidence, is how she controls the evidence that's one of the most important tactics that she uses. Now, let's get back to how Candace controls the evidence, making it nearly impossible to argue against her. Take a look at this tweet from Blair White saying that almost no one has proved Tucker or her wrong. And the reason people can say this with so much confidence is because of the way that Candace handles evidence.
I have it now on a very well-placed authoritative source.
To start, when it comes to a lot of her claims, we simply aren't able to verify if they're true or not. She often cites unnamed sources, and we have no way of knowing who they are, how reliable they are, or what they actually said. We just have to take her word for it. So when people say to prove her wrong, well, most of the time you can't because she hasn't provided any evidence that she's right. Now, I'm not saying she's doing this, but in theory, she could just be making it all up. This is why the burden of proof always falls on the person that's making the claim rather than the person questioning it. Okay, but here's where things get even more challenging. Even when we do have direct evidence showing that she's wrong, it still doesn't count. I mean, take a look at what she said about Netanyahu's letter from Charlie Kirk.
He is severely misrepresenting. Those sentences are real, but I am calling upon Bibi Netanyahu, the dear friend to Charlie Kirk, to publish the letter's entire contents. Like, don't start with just 2 sentences. Publish the entire thing. You're holding it. I'm saying you're severely misrepresenting the content.
Now, this is a common power move. She forces Netanyahu to choose between 2 options. He can either release the personal letter to the public or keep it private and look guilty. And when the letter was released and it confirmed exactly what Netanyahu said, it didn't seem to change her mind. In fact, this is the same tactic that we see over and over. She demands evidence, and if you don't give it, then you're hiding something. But even if you do give it, it doesn't disprove her claim. Instead, she treats the evidence as suspicious or even as more proof of a cover-up. So either way, she wins, and that makes it almost impossible for our audience to recognize when she's been proven wrong. In addition, remember when she said this about Bill Ackman blackmailing Charlie?
You're not going to gaslight us and tell us to shut up or call us anti-Semitic for pointing out the fact that Charlie was having a change of heart about the tactics that Israel was using in America, and that he felt when he had left that meeting that he had effectively been blackmailed.
But just 3 days later, when Bill Ackman denied it, she said,
okay, buddy, I never said you blackmailed Charlie. I asked you if this moment happened.
So notice how she shifted the claim and then frames him as the liar. And that's what we really see going on here, because the way that she gets you hooked is not in the evidence she presents, but in how she frames the evidence.
She uses a lot of logical fallacies as well.
See, at core, humans are emotional beings, and we respond strongest to emotional arguments. And on social media, nothing spreads faster than moral outrage. It gives us a sense of righteous anger, the feeling that we're on the side of good and standing against evil. And this is something that Candace has nearly mastered, because in every episode, she leans into moral outrage, not just about what happened, but about why more people aren't as angry as she is. And she regularly questions anyone that isn't digging into the case the way that she is.
We all feel that something is spiritually wrong, and yet these people are trying to tell you if there's nothing to see here.
Okay, but if you pay close attention, you notice that she isn't just assuming the very thing that she hasn't proven, that Tyler Robinson wasn't the shooter. She's also treating disagreement with her as a moral test. In her framing, if you disagree with her, you're not just wrong, you're morally wrong, or worse, morally compromised.
And I explain in my heuristics video, which I will leave up in the corner, I explain in that video how using only heuristics to think about complex problems or issues, especially something like this or any kind of political stuff or whatever, that most people are just using heuristics, which are mental shortcuts that don't follow logic all the way to its conclusion quite often. And heuristics can often be very wrong. It has to have analytical thinking for many things in life that's really important. And a lot of people aren't doing that. They're only doing heuristics. Heuristics is the first thinking. Then you need to move on to the critical thinking. And so that video explains that.
People are afraid to disagree with her, not only because they're worried about being attacked by her and her fans, but they'll also be painted as immoral, naive, or corrupt. So whether she intends it or not, she creates a powerful good versus evil dynamic. And that's why any disagreement that me or others have with her instantly turns into accusations that we're somehow being paid $7,000 by Israel. In their minds, the only reason that you disagree with them is because you're part of the conspiracy. You'll notice that she doesn't just argue a case, she creates a cause. And the result is what we see today, a fierce and growing community which keeps her audience loyal, even when she has nothing more to go on than a gut feeling.
I don't know, but I know.
And this is when we get into another powerful tactic, spiritual attacks. Lately, she's moved a lot of her attention over to the Christians who don't agree with her. And one thing that she really doesn't like is when Christians use scripture to point out what's wrong with what she's doing, as she made clear in her response to Frank Turek.
Then we have Frank Turek, who engages in this same sort of act of psychological manipulation in my viewpoint, and he defends Mikey McCoy. I think this is on his own show. Here's what he...
That's really rich, saying that somebody else is using psychological manipulation when that is what she is doing on an extreme level that I've never seen in one place before. It is unbelievable, the psychological manipulation that she is doing on a daily basis. It's wild.
He had to say.
There's a difference between a possibility and evidence for a possibility. You can speculate on anything you want, but unless you have evidence, shut up, okay? Because all you're doing is causing dissension among the brothers, which is something the Lord hates.
So the clip goes on, but she not only labels his correction as psychological manipulation, she escalates it by calling his argument a form of spiritual deception.
The other thing he's doing, of course, is the biblical manipulation, which seems to me to be that there has been a military infiltration into the churches. I think we've covered that enough this year. I've termed that Operation Mocking Pastor, where they just try to find some scripture and justify it. And he's a pastor, he's earned trust. He's saying she's judging people. The Lord says this. The Lord says she shouldn't look into the trial. The Lord says she shouldn't ask questions. The Lord thinks that people should just shut up, right? That to me is like the sickest form of manipulation. The sickest form of manipulation is to try to present it via the lens of what God would want. You don't have to do that. Just say what you think, say what you mean, and try to manipulate people the old school way, okay?
Now, this has become more of a pattern, because even more recently, she not only dismissed Ali Beth Stuckey's scripture-filled critique by calling her Christianity fake, but even worse, Candace doesn't seem to mind appealing to God in the Bible when it suits her case.
There's no justification. There definitively cannot be any godly justification for what they have done and what they have always done in Gaza. Once you recognize the people defending that, beyond this, you will start to look at them as possessed by some sort of a demon, and typically that demon is just money. Okay, they just want the money. And the Bible is explicit about that, right? You can't have both. And like I said, God's chosen people do not endorse that. In fact, only Satan chosen people could.
So she does seem comfortable using religious language and scripture as a way to give her claims spiritual weight, while discrediting Christians who do the same when they reach different conclusions. And here's where it gets even more concerning. Listen to how she uses spiritual language here.
I am begging you all, those of you who go to these mega churches, those of you who are evangelical, who follow these evangelical influencers, you are probably noticing about now that they are mum on the topic of Charlie Kirk. They want to move on. They want to let it be known that it's just a trans shooter. Not one of them is standing up and going, no, 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 no. I spiritually feel that something is wrong. We all feel that something is spiritually wrong. And yet these people are trying to tell you that there's nothing to see here. That needs to be your wake up call.
So first, she treats her instincts as spiritual signals from God. And second, anyone who doesn't share those instincts is framed as spiritually blind or spiritually compromised.
They are asking you to set aside your instinct, your gut instinct, your God instinct. You recognize something is wrong.
However, this is ironic given the thousands of comments that people have left on my videos saying that they did trust their spiritual instincts and it led them away from Candace. They felt like something was off in their spirit, and not with the people that she critiques, but in the way that she's been approaching things lately. And by the way, if you felt that too, if you believe that something in your spirit is being unsettled by what she's been doing, go ahead and write it down below in the comments. And not to attack her, but just to see how many Christians have been sensing the same thing. So at this point, this has been going on for months now. She's currently made almost 40 episodes on this topic, and she keeps telling her audience that they're getting really close to solving this case.
We are making so many discoveries in this case, and I have to tell you guys, we're getting close. I've got a feeling about that. We're close. We are now, I believe, extremely close to solving this thing, and their panic is making me think that we're getting closer to something, and that something is pretty big. And I just sense that we're getting close. I sense that we are getting very close. We're getting low. Very close, I think, to what actually happened on that day.
But at the time of recording, none of her episodes have gotten us any closer to a single verifiable theory. And at the end of the day, Candace isn't the first person to confuse her moral instincts with truth, and she won't be the last either. The louder the world gets, the more that people will mistake confidence for credibility and emotion for revelation. But scripture calls us to test every spirit, and we should. We should ask questions, especially of the voices that might feel righteous. And that includes my words just as much as hers or anyone else's. You can ask yourself, where am I letting emotion or outrage replace evidence and truth in my life? Because if we don't learn to recognize those tactics in the voices that we admire, then we'll never be able to recognize them in ourselves. And the moment that we stop testing what we hear is the moment that we stop noticing when we're being led somewhere that isn't grounded in the truth.
Okay, so he said, will lead you to believe lies that are said in confidence. So I want to show you guys what a con man actually means in regards to confidence. Okay, so I put in what does con in con artist mean. Con artist or con man is short for confidence man. So let me read this to you. The con in con artist is short for confidence, referring to the confidence trick, a scam where the perpetrator gains the victim's trust to exploit them. The term originated in the mid-1800s as confidence man, describing someone who deceives others by building false trust. Over time, con artist evolved to mean a skilled swindler who uses manipulation, lies, and fabricated stories to defraud people, often for money or valuables. When we say that Candace Owens is a con artist, what she's doing is she is saying things with such confidence that you actually believe what she's saying without any evidence. People are believing the lies that she's saying because she's using manipulation tactics and she's saying them with such confidence. That is what con men do. Okay, so let's go back to the article. So the last line, just so we can refresh ourselves, was, "It brings me no solace to know that I am alone." I first became aware of Candace Owens in 2018, not long after I boarded a train from New York to Washington and marched alongside the women protesting the inauguration of Donald Trump. I noticed a post from a woman I followed expressing excitement about seeing Candace speak at a local college. Curious, I looked her up. She was telegenic and charismatic. Her delivery was sharp, her effect hypnotic. I was captivated. At the time, I was engaged outwardly in demonstrations against Trump. My political views were quietly and privately beginning to shift. A crop of Breitbart-endorsed personalities became my entry point into conservative politics. In addition to Candace, I was reading provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos. Within a decade, Candace had become one of the loudest and most successful conservative voices in the country. Like me, her values had initially aligned with the left. One of the earliest formative incidents documented dates to 2025. An April 5th, 2023 Vanity Fair profile described a fall 2005 incident in which Owens was allegedly attacked by 3 white girls who threatened her earlier that day, then confronted her at a local Blockbuster where she worked. In 2007, Owens filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against the Stamford, Connecticut school district after receiving racist threats from white classmates at her high school. The NAACP assisted in the case, which alleged that the school failed to protect her from racial harassment. It was widely covered at the time and ultimately settled for $37,500. She wrote that the event caused her to develop a severe eating disorder. That same year, Owens was arrested in an unrelated harassment case while still a minor, according to a report by the Danbury News-Times. Because she was 17 at the time, her records remained sealed. A few years later, through a mainstream channel, she formally entered the media. There is scant verifiable information available about this period. According to Candace, she dropped out of the University of Rhode Island her junior year and worked for Condé Nast with an internship either at Glamour or Vogue. By 2015, she was the 25-year-old founder and CEO of Degree 180, marketed as a publication for the aspiring girl boss. Now, I find this really odd that she is giving Erica Kirk so much grief for having also started businesses and LLCs, and she calls Erica Kirk a girl boss and all this stuff she did before she was married to Charlie Kirk. And yet, when in reference to Erica, it's a bad thing that Candace is disparaging and making a lot of innuendo about. But when it comes to Candace, that was okay for her to have done before she was married. There's a lot of hypocrisy surrounding this woman. It featured a wide mix of content, some of it openly anti-Trump, anti-Tea Party, anti-male, anti-white, and anti-Gamergate, alongside articles about sex and celebrity gossip. In practice, it functioned as a venue for an unfocused assortment of short musings on lifestyle, love, mid-20s ennui, and at times politics. The pieces were penned by Candace and a group of other young female authors who sought to appear relatable, with selfies as their official photos and playful bios. That made them seem more like teenagers on social media than would-be media players. The site resembled other lo-fi blog collectives of the period, similar to Zojane, Bustle, or Thought Catalog. By the time I was 8 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a writer, Candace confessed in one entry. Now she was a young woman writing to sort out who she was and where she fit in. She shared quotes by Edgar Allan Poe, Albert Einstein, and Kanye West, her idol, In many ways, and yes, I am aware this is going to come off as arrogant, I feel that I am the female Kanye West, she wrote. In another entry, many of which have since been scrubbed from the internet and now survive only through archived Snapchats, she recounted an illuminating conversation with a New York cab driver who lectured her on American hypocrisy around monogamy. She listened, she wrote, in service of my constant quest to expand my consciousness and challenge previously held ideas. In another, she wrote that she found extramarital affairs romantic, morally wrong, yes, but instances in which reason was overtaken by passion which charmed her. She also described the shocking ease with which she had obtained Adderall and Xanax prescriptions, offering a critique of a society that dispenses drugs first and asks questions later or never. Can we feel sad? Can we feel happy? Can we maybe feel unmotivated and lazy sometimes as our minds and bodies continue to transform like the ever-shifting landscapes that they are? Do we dare to just feel? She sounded honestly like a writer, someone puzzled by and curious about the human experience, watching from the sidelines even as she lived it herself. In her simmering unease with social conventions and powerful systems, she reflected the naturally anti-establishment worldview most writers possess in some form. There were, of course, glimpses of the Candace the world would soon come to know. Beyond the Kanye worship were colorful missives designed to provoke outrage about gender, sexuality, and race. She published criticism of the Mad Hatter, leading the conservative movement Donald Trump, and even a satirical interview with God. And that's where we're going to leave things for today. In this first installment, we started laying the groundwork, looking at who Candace Owens is and where she came from, and some of the early moments that helped shape the public persona millions of people see today. But this is only the beginning, because as we move forward in the series, we're going to start examining the patterns, the narratives, and the claims that have brought her into conflict with former allies and major figures in the conservative movement. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. I always read them, and your feedback helps shape where this investigation goes next. In the next installment, we're going to go even deeper into the timeline and start looking at the events that set the stage for the current controversy. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Eclectic Journalist.
Thank you.